in Chinese medicine, we understand they have this idea that the man, the human being, men and women, we are the bridge between heaven and earth. This idea that every human being's purpose, regardless of what your vocation is, our essence, our beingness here is to bring heaven onto earth.
Beautiful.
And so with this kind of frame and this idea that we can cultivate healing and well-being from the inside out, in fact, this is each of our own responsibility in life, is to go deeply within and orient towards life from the inside out, take beautiful care of ourselves so that we bring the highest quality of energy into every interaction of life, whether it's in our motherhood or fatherhood, as a corporate leader, as a friendly neighbor. Take beautiful care of the quality of energy, the quality of beingness that you embody, and bring it into the doingness of your life. So these are all the things that I thought, wow, at first it was like this such flowery, beautiful philosophy. And then once you start practicing and cultivating it, it's a way of life that gives you a more beautiful life.
And we're live for another episode of Being Human. I'm delighted to say I'm here with Dr. Edith Ubuntu Chan. She's joining us from Marin County, California. She's an holistic Chinese medicine doctor and a human potential coach. She's also the author of this, Beauty, Super Wellness, Become Your Own Best Healer, Supercharge Your Energy, Upgrade Your Life. I've been following your work for probably over a year now, and I truly am honored, excited to have you on the show. Dr. Edith, welcome.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you to the audience. Thank you so much for sharing this conversation with us. I'm so honored to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, like with all my guests, I really like to start at the beginning. And before we get into all of your wonderful work and your insight on wellness and many other topics, give us a sense of your upbringing, where you grew up, and where you started your journey.
Wow. Well, so many stories. I love sharing stories. One good story to start with is that when I was 4 years old, I was growing up in Hong Kong. And as your audience may know, Hong Kong is a really interesting multicultural place. So I grew up with all the Chinese culture and also the British Western influences. And when I was 4 years old, this particular thing took place that really set the trajectory of my life, really colored everything that we're about to talk about here with human potential, all of it, which is that when I was 4 years old, my dad had this horrible back injury that he had gone from doctor to doctor to doctor, and nobody could really help. They said, the imaging, everything looks fine. We don't know why. And my sister had this ankle sprain that was basically fine, but it kept getting swollen. So after trying many different modalities, and there's different kinds of doctors and nurses in my family, so we got very good Western medical care. Finally, somebody suggested to my mom and dad, there is this back alleyway qigong master. He emits his qi and is kind of strange, but it's a little bit like those martial arts movies. Just try it out. He's not expensive, and we've heard all these stories of miraculous healings with this qigong master. Like one session, and he helps people with all these conditions that nobody else was able to help with. He has results. Just check it out. So, this is dating me a little bit, but it was, in the early 1980s, and I distinctly remember my mom used to dress me in those 80s warm-up suits with, the matching velour. It was a purple one, matching velour tops and bottoms. And I tagged along, and I went to this place. And this guy was dressed a little bit like, a Shaolin monk style looking guy, and he had a big belly, and I remember poking on his belly. At 4 years old, you're, like, right at that level where you're just seeing everyone's, like, belly. This one has a big belly, this one has a small belly. I was like, "He has a big belly." And this guy says, "That's my qi," you know? It's my dantian. Dantian is the Chinese qigong term for the medicine the field of elixir that we can generate from the inside out, that this idea that healing really takes place from within. That if we cultivate ourselves through our lifestyles and practices in the right way, we can cultivate medicine from the inside out. So that was the first time I heard these terminologies at this guy's office. And in one session, my dad's back pain was gone. In one session, my sister's ankle swelling came right down. No more pain. What does a 4-year-old do now? You see this with your own eyes and you say, that's what I want to do when I grow up, right? So I started telling all the adults around me, when I grow up, I'm going to be some kind of a Chinese healer. And so back in those days, we're so blessed now. In this time that we're in, there is so much openness about holistic alternative approaches to health. Back then, that was what Western medicine is everything. All the people with the white coats and the fancy degrees on the wall, that's who we respect. Also, the traditional healers and shamans at that time in the 80s were just like starting to boom with so much materialism and capitalism that was like revered, right? In the minds of my parents and my grandparents, it was like modernity is what we revere. All this traditional old stuff, eh, you're not gonna make money with that. How you go to school, get good grades, get a university degree, and get a good job. That's what they wanted, and I really appreciate that because I ended up, after trying for many, many months, convincing all the adults around me that I wanted to learn how to be a Chinese qigong healer. Everyone said, "Oh, that's cute. Don't do that. That's first of all, you would need to apprentice under a master for decades. Second of all, there's no money to be made. Look at that guy. He lives in practically a shack, get a degree, get a good job, get a good house." All these kinds of narratives started being told to me from a loving space with good intention, obviously. So I said, if I can't do that, I suppose I'll just be an astronaut. And so all the adults said, finally, she stopped talking about this Chinese thing, this Chinese qigong and Chinese medicine thing. And the adults said, well, then you want to be very good at science and maths and engineering. So I said, okay, no problem. And indeed I was. And so I grew up and went to Harvard, got an applied mathematics degree. And after graduation, I got recruited by many different technology companies. And I was just naturally inclined towards analytical thinking. And I also realized that one of my gifts in this life is really good pattern recognition. So I can apply that to just about any endeavor. And so, fresh out of university, I was recruited by different technology companies. And so I found myself being a really good bridger of the technological world and the business world. So I found myself in different positions as project managers that would translate business requirements to technology requirements and back and forth. And various different roles and also roles as an educator, like looking at new technology, developing coursework, and quickly ramping up the technical consultants to learn new technology so that they can go do the work with the new technology. So I had different roles, and shortly after entering into the software world, I started doing quite well, and I started noticing that my health was declining. And I noticed that I had gained 15, 20 pounds in just the first couple of years coming out of university and working in technology. I was working 60 to 80-hour weeks. And I won Employee of the Year award at the software company that I was working at. Everybody loved me. I was getting raises. I thought, okay, I've made it. My hardworking immigrant family that moved to the United States, I really tried to give me and my sister the very best possible life. I have made it. This is the immigrant's dream. I went to Harvard. My sister went to MIT. And all of that success, I realized I was not healthy. I was not happy. I was not fulfilled. So this one particular day, I walk into this board meeting which is unusual for a very junior person like myself to be invited to a board meeting. But because of the perspective that I had in this startup with simultaneous awareness of the business and the technology requirements, they wanted me in the room, and I realized that they saw something in me that they really wanted to support me in growing into leadership positions in the company. And so I thought, wow, I've really made it. My parents would be so proud that I'm in this meeting. And I found myself proudly walking into this boardroom, and I could just really take in the whole scene. The smell of the whiteboard, the sound of the projector, the leather seats, like the smell of all of it. I took it all in. And then I sat down. I was so proud. I'm only in my 20s. I'm in this meeting. And then it was like the record player just went, screeched to a halt. As I looked around these wonderful human beings who I really revered and respected and had all these professional successes, suddenly I saw that while they were good people, none of them were healthy. They all look inflamed, stressed, tense, striving, grasping. And I had the deepest respect for them because I know that they have professional success. And at the same time, this voice started saying, "Is this what you wanted to be when you grew up?" And I started realizing there must be a better way. At this time, I had inflamed, I was still doing sports. I did sports all throughout university, and I competed in triathlons competitively for a good 15 years after university. And
Wow.
um, so I was still athletic, but my body was inflamed, and I hope this is not too much information. I was having, like, GI upset problems, I was having acne, I was having a painful menses. Every month, I'd have some debilitating time with that, and
Painful
so
what? Sorry, did you say menses?
menstruation, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
menstruation, yeah.
so the woman's moon cycle, I now 2 decades later, I realized that that is not something that a woman needs to suffer with
Mm.
ever. There are wonderful holistic ways. At that time, I just thought, well, I guess this is adulthood. I would go see a doctor, and the doctor would literally say, take an painkiller and call me tomorrow, or don't even call me tomorrow. This is just life. It's just stress. I thought, is it? Is it? Is that really what life has to be like? And I started looking around at all of these people that I looked up to, that I saw as mentors for my career path, and I realized 20 years later, I actually don't want to be like that. I love the professional success, but that stressful energy that they held in their bodies, the furrow in their brows, the inflammation, um, the not good vitality, I thought, I do not strive for that. Is this what life is all about? So that began a period of soul searching. And, at that time, now I look so fondly on the struggle, but at that time, it was an intense struggle because my whole family was so proud that I finally made it and I was doing well and I'm out of the house and I have a good career. And, I'm on my feet now, successful, Ivy League graduate, all of these things that the society tells you. In the end, it was the events of September 11th that finally I said, I don't know what this world is about, but I if the world really did end it tomorrow, I would regret not quitting this career and at least trying out being a holistic Chinese medicine doctor. And at that time, it turns out there was Masters of Science degrees, and later there became doctorate degrees, and I got both of those degrees, and I just realized that, oh, it's a different time. It was such a blessing that my family made sure that I had a proper, modern education, and ultimately my soul on a deep level knew that my path was in Chinese medicine and in working with energy actually, which I look forward to debriefing some of that with.
Yeah.
It's all coming full circle because I realized that energy awareness, energy sensitivity, energy hygiene, energy mastery, every human being deserves to have this capacity. In fact, now that I'm a mom, I really feel that this is really must be part of a fundamental education and upbringing for a human being to have command of your own energy and physiology, and also have a sensitivity and sensibility to the energetics of, if you walk into a meeting, to be sensitive to the energies and to be able to masterfully command the energies of your own being and alchemize or shift or bring into coherence the energy of a team of people that you're working with. Like, these are rare gifts in today's world, and I look forward to a world where everyone has this kind of energy mastery. But
Mm.
for me, at that time, that transition requires so much soul searching, so much digging deep, so much shutting down the noise of my family that said, "What, you're thinking about throwing all of that away?" There's even one uncle who said, "Why would you completely put to waste a perfectly good, Ivy League trained math brain to become some kind of a quack?" There was all of that, and when you're in your 20s, you're still not a little bit shaky inside, so when all of
Mm.
your aunts and uncles and family members and mentors, everyone says that you're walking the wrong path, that was quite an initiation. It really tested me, and I did it anyway. So I changed my career, went to Chinese medicine school. I got a traditional apprenticeship with my teacher, Dr. Fu, who taught me all kinds of lineage-based qigong and manual therapy techniques and all kinds of gifts that he learned through his lineage. And so many powerful things that ultimately culminated into what turned out to be a rather successful Chinese medicine practice once I started it. And then I'm so blessed because now holistic medicine, alternative, complementary, holistic approaches have become very popular now. But, two plus decades ago, it was a lonely path to make that choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating, and I absolutely want to get into what you spoke about in terms of energy uh, management and your broader approach to holistic medicine. But I'm curious about you getting out because I resonate, right? I got a good degree, I had a corporate career, but certainly when I was in my 20s, and I had relatively poor health. In fact, I was an active binge alcoholic, and I was not at all sensitive to my own health or that of others. And it took me probably another decade after you before I started to sort of wake up to the stresses of my corporate career on my body and my health. So, but I'm interested in, what you so 9/11 happens, you're still in this role, you've got your family with their expectations. What starts to break the dam? Like what's the first action you take or insight you get that starts you on your journey to exit that world?
Well, the cathartic moment really was when I was at that board meeting, and I really saw it was like time stood still, and I went into something like a near-death experience, like, out of my body, and I just saw a bird's eye view of a choice point in my life, and I saw, "Oh, okay, I could choose this, and I pretty much guaranteed success because I was good at my job and I could play the games and I was, had a strong analytical mind, and I got how this software world, I understood. I just saw the path ahead into leadership positions as someone that was sitting in that boardroom. I saw. And this voice said, "Is this what you wanted to be when you grew up?" And then I just had a flashback, and the sensation, the feeling of pure joy and delight and expansion and love and enthusiasm that took over my being as I remembered how I felt as a 4-year-old wanting to be a Chinese qigong healer.
Ah, okay.
The contrast was, one was like go through the motions of life and chug along and you'll get, you'll get your millions, and yeah, and then your soul. Then I probably would have then tried to retire early and then explore all of these holistic stuff, but much later in life. So it was so clear that my soul yearned to walk this path. And, in hindsight, sometimes I feel like, maybe if I was more mature, I might have stayed 2 more years and saved up my pennies a little bit better and planned my finances, but my heart just called so strongly to quit pretty much instantaneously. Shortly after that, I actually took a sabbatical to try out Chinese medicine for a period of time. I thought
Okay.
if it didn't feel right, I haven't left software too long to be out of touch. Like within the year, I could go back to that career. So I had that hesitation. I was like, what does it hurt to pack up my expensive San Francisco flat that I was living in? And I had just met my now the father of my children. At the time, he was just this new guy that I was dating, and so he said, "Well, you can pack it all up and move into my little, group house." He was also recently out of university, and he was living in a house with a bunch of friends from his university, and his room was I don't know what it is in meters, but it was like 8 foot by 10 foot size. It was, like, so small, and I sold everything, just my bicycle, 1 suitcase of clothes, and I had a cat. I moved into this tiny place, and I found so much joy. I found that I didn't need anything, and I started going to Chinese medicine school, and I met all of these brilliant, beautiful people with the most beautiful hearts. I thought, well, if nothing else, I've just gone on this wild adventure of meeting amazing people and learning about Chinese medicine, which has not only acupuncture, herbology, all the modalities that people know about, the nutrition, the qigong, the Tai Chi practices for cultivating your health and well being, but it has a beautiful frame for looking at the nature of life and reality. In Chinese medicine, we understand they have this idea that the man, the human being, men and women, we are the bridge between heaven and earth. This idea that every human being's purpose, regardless of what your vocation is, our essence, our beingness here, is to bring heaven onto earth. And
Beautiful.
so with this kind of frame and this idea that we can cultivate healing and well-being from the inside out. In fact, this is each of our own responsibility in life is to go deeply within and orient towards life from the inside out. Take beautiful care of ourselves so that we bring the highest quality of energy into every interaction of life, whether it's in our motherhood or fatherhood, as a corporate leader, as a friendly neighbor. Take beautiful care of the quality of energy, the quality of beingness that you embody, and bring it into the doingness of your life. So these are all the things that I thought, wow, at first it was like this such flowery, beautiful philosophy. And then once you start practicing and cultivating it, it's a way of life that gives you a more beautiful life. So I
Yeah.
think even if I don't make a career out of this makes me a better human being. Why not? Go through this program, train myself in this way. It'll make me a better software corporate leader in the future if I decided to go back to that. And it turns out that wasn't my path.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. No, well, thank you for going over that again because what I got a deeper insight there. So it sounds to me like what was critical in this shift was you had this vision of where you'd be if you stayed in the software world, but you felt in your heart, and I think this is critical here, you felt in your heart the joy of what was available to you if you took that different path. And I think that's the difference between a lot of people who might be in a corporate role and stay in it versus those who've taken the path that you have. And that's because I'm sure many people have that thought, oh, yeah, I'm not sure about these people. I'm not sure what happens if I stuck here. But then they dismiss that thought. They stay in their head. They stay in the analysis. They're like, and they're weighing the pros and cons. And but you were able to drop into your heart, feel something different, and that gave you the momentum to leave. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and that has been a lifelong practice, isn't it? Because the world will tell you a lot of things. Now, as a mom, um, the world will tell you how you should raise your children and how you should which the at the doctor's office they'll tell you all kinds of things, and you stand strong in your inner guidance system. And to me, that is the single most important skill and gift of this life, is to really know yourself deeply and to know without any judgment. We're not saying that my way works for everybody, but that for each of us to know ourselves deeply and to practically just do what works for us in a loving way from listening to our heart's intuitive wisdom and guidance.
Mm. And it sounds like you had that strong signal that you were able to tap into, which guided you and you acted on. Um, Tell me about this master you met. He's a sounds like a very interesting character.
Yeah, his name is Dr. Fu. He's now retired. It was a kind of a synchronicities, as I'm sure your audience can relate. Sometimes we get a certain set of results if we purely rely on analytical thinking to drive our actions, decisions, and behaviors. And sometimes it doesn't totally make sense analytically, and yet you listen to your heart, and then boom, synchronicity after synchronicity after synchronicity happens. And a huge synchronicity was I was, training as a triathlete, and I had, a couple of friends that, in particular, there's one friend who is a really quite an exceptional athlete, and he's a long distance runner, and um his wife is from Shanghai originally, and somehow through the Chinese immigrant community, they'd heard about my teacher, Dr. Fu, and so word got out that in the triathlon community, there's this Edith who is, switching careers from software into Chinese medicine, and everybody was like, "How strange, how interesting," but they unlike my family, at least my triathlon friends are like, "That's cool, like, go for it, we don't know anything about it," but we'd heard that there's this Chinese qigong healer, he does acupuncture, manual therapy, and qigong, and he's in the Chinese neighborhood, would you like to meet him? And so apparently there was some conversations and, Dr. Fu had said, "Well, usually I only take boys as apprentices because I do heavy duty Chinese orthopedics and bone setting, and you gotta be strong and athletic." And they said, "Oh, no, no, she's an award-winning triathlete, like, she's strong. She can handle, athleticism." And so the first time I went to his place, he pierced into my soul with his eyes, and he said, "Yes, it is fate that we are meant to meet. You can come study with me." Like, in one look, he saw. And so while apprenticing with him for 4 years, I would go to Chinese medicine school to pass all the exams and pass all the licensing and board exams and get the degrees and so on, but I would say 95% of what was the base of my training was through this apprenticeship, actually seeing with my own eyes, and because he served the Chinese clientele, oftentimes he would have, multiple clients just sitting in the waiting room and, like, not my office right now is more luxurious, everyone has their own separate treatment room, is spacious and so on. At his clinic, he just packed them in, and so people are sitting on little chairs and stools and multiple people in a room and all of this, so I saw tons of cases, and people would tell me about their experiences, like, "Wow, remember that time that, Doctor Thru admitted his chi and the guy had a complete, shoulder tear that required surgery, and he admitted his chi and the guy's MRI the next week showed that it was completely healed, a medical miracle. Or this guy had a herniated disc in his back, and then, Dr. Fu treated him a few times, and then the herniation was gone, and the MRI all these kinds of stories, right? So I saw impossibility after impossibility for 4 years straight. People would come there and pay small pennies really compared to the surgeries that they were recommended or the very expensive procedures or
Mm.
the things that would require lifelong medication. I just saw so many cases that it completely broke those limitation programs I had in my mind about what actually is possible. There's also a practical aspect too that some things are more complex and stubborn and some things are easy, but I started seeing that a lot of things become very easy if you see it from the lens of a holistic body, mind, emotion, soul, and energy lens instead of the dense physical lens. So I came to see that Western medicine, while it is extremely important and life saving in emergency situations and absolutely necessary, it looks at life through a pure physical materialist lens, and we're missing out on the vastness of options and possibilities that are available if you look at things through a holistic lens and through an energetic lens.
Right. Yeah. And what was your first success healing somebody else?
Oh, I don't remember now. So, because it eased into it, right? I started learning all these different manual therapy techniques. I started like what looks like massage, and then I started learning different alignment techniques for the spine and so on. So I started doing a lot of very interesting orthopedic manual therapy techniques under his tutelage. But I would say what's really substantial was that one time we were at a family gathering, and my family was still very doubtful about my path, but they saw that I was very devoted to it, that I would go to school, and then I would, apprentice with my teacher for 20 plus hours a week, basically whenever I wasn't in school. And then on the weekends, I got my official massage therapy license so that I can offer manual therapy sessions to athletes in the community. So every Sunday, I would see 8, 9, 10 back to back to back 1 hour clients, no breaks, no bathroom,
So
no eating.
you didn't lose any of your work ethic.
Yeah, so
That's
so
really-
I was, logging in a lot of hours working with athletes treating their sports injuries. So by the time I got my acupuncture license and was able to open my own shop, I had a backlog of athletes that were ready to do acupuncture, herbs, all the holistic aspects that I was trained in beyond just the manual therapy aspect. But the manual therapy got me very sensitive to healthy tissues or inflamed tissues. Like there's no as with any line of work, there's no substituting just logging in the reps and logging in the hours, right? You can read a book and understand the philosophy, but unless you integrate it in your own direct experience, you actually don't know anything. It's just a bunch of flowery words. It's a bunch of philosophy. So that's another huge aspect of this journey. It's like logging in the hours so it's integrated, embodied through your own direct experience. And yeah, so but to answer your question, so after logging so many hours, it's I somehow I was trying. I had given up on having my family accept my path. I just gave up on it. I was like, "Well, they just don't understand me, I guess. I'm just gonna have to make peace with it." One holiday season, we were in Toronto visiting some, family members that lived there, and my uncle had a really tough case of frozen shoulder. And so he could hardly lift his arm, maybe like 15, 20 degrees. And he had been doing PT for a whole year, physical physiotherapy for a whole year with very little results. So in that week that I was there, I gave him, I don't recall if it was like 2, 3, or 4 treatments, whatever I could fit in within that week that I was there. And we got back full range of motion.
Wow.
And so all the family members saw that with their own eyes, and they started saying, "Well, what else can you help with? I've got this back problem. I've got this digestion problem. I've got this." And so I just one by one started giving them some good results. And so they stopped objecting to my career choice. But it did take a number of years. I did have to put in the, 10,000 hours
Yeah.
before I got to the point where I was helpful. And then the results, the success speaks for itself. And at this point, I stopped counting after about 38,000 hours under my belt of working one on one with people.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like I don't have to say anything. It is oozing out of my cells that this is my life's work and this is what I feel so much joy and pleasure and satisfaction and fulfillment from living this life, so it doesn't even cross my mind to be seeking anyone's approval for it anymore.
Well, no, that makes complete sense. And well, what? Yeah, it must have been an extraordinary moment when you healed your uncle like that. Were you? How did you feel when you saw his reaction?
Well, I had treated many cases successfully with the, guidance of my teacher, Dr. Fu, and actually subsequently, that was before I went back to school to do a doctorate specialization degree, so my doctorate paper and focus was on the holistic approach to frozen shoulder, and that became my specialty, and I've subsequently treated tons of frozen shoulders successfully, so yeah, but that it was, I don't know, it was just like, yeah, welcome. Welcome to reality is how I felt. It's like,
Interesting.
welcome
Yeah.
to the reality where this actually works. I've been living this reality for years, and now you guys have like the blinders got taken off. Welcome. Come on over. That's how I felt about it.
Right. Right.
It wasn't
Um,
like, "Oh, yeah, finally, like, I've been vindicated." I didn't feel at all like that. It's a little bit I
it wasn't like I told you so.
yeah, maybe there's a little bit of that, I don't know, but really, it's more like if you love your family, if you love your neighbors, if you love your colleagues, and you found something great, you want to share it.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit sad when they refuse a solution that you know works so darn well, right? Like, this is good stuff, man. Come check it out. That's how I always was feeling inside, but I had to mute my voice because they're like, "Oh, no, no, that's quackery," and all this stuff. So it just felt like a release, like I don't have to there wasn't that tension that I'm living this delightful, beautiful, like, paradise of a life, and they're still kinda struggling, in my opinion, unnecessarily when there's a more easeful, natural solution to so many things that I wanted so much to share with them. And now with, some decades under my belt, I'm more cautious about that fine line that everyone opens up at their own perfect time. That in my youth, I was unnecessarily I was enthusiastic, but sometimes to be honest, I have to be honest, I was unnecessarily pushy about these things, right?
Right.
And that always backfires.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
will people know, and they will just come to you and ask when they're ready and when they're open, and
Yeah.
that's a better way. Now that I'm more in, with some years under my belt, that's more of my approach now.
Right. Yes, and so you've put the reps in. You've now obviously you've got a slightly different relationship to it, and I completely relate to pushing something. I remember I remember reading the definition of codependence is chasing your partner around the room with a self help book, right?
Yes, yes, yeah, I can so relate to that.
I can relate. But I think that we find these alternative experiences of reality. We're like everyone should have this, but yeah, not everyone's ready, as you say. So So we've talked about energy, right? This has been it's been a key word, and yeah, talk to me a little bit more about your understanding of energy in the Chinese medicine system. What why it's important, uh, and yeah, how we can manage it and use it to our advantage, if that's yeah, that's the right way of putting it.
Okay, well, that is a lifetime's or multiple lifetimes worth of conversations about energy because, in fact, our understanding and perspective in Chinese medicine is that energy is the fundamental substance and the physical reality is also made of energy. And so when we see everything as energy, we are not so stuck in the fixed mindset of like, oh, this is so dense and difficult because there's no such thing as truly stuck energy that we there's just a more optimal and more coherent levels of flow. So there's a fluidity in how we work with things now. But from a very practical perspective, I like to, when we're just starting our path, what I like to share is let's start with just something as simple as I love to do this when I go on, talks at, different, like, corporate wellness events. One of the things that I say, "Okay, everybody, stop everything you're doing. Don't look at your phone," 'cause half the people aren't even paying attention to what you're saying, they're looking at their phone. "Okay, put your phone down, everybody." Okay, without looking at your phone, do you know your phone's battery level right now?
I'm going to get 70 on mine. I've not looked.
Oh, well, good. Okay, that's good. At an event that I did I noticed, like, suddenly everybody was raising their hand. I'm like, "Do you know at least, like, within the 10 percentile, like, it's 30 to 40%, 40 to 50%, or so on, right?" So most people, if their phone starts to get dipped down to a certain level, they go, "Oh god, I wanna plug it in now," right? Like, you care so much about your phone's energy performance. Or if it's, like, slow and it's not loading fast, you're like, "Oh, okay, I've got too many apps," or, like, some threads are I need to reboot. We are aware of the energy performance of our mobile devices so well. So I say, "Okay, don't look at your phone, check in with yourself. What is your battery level?" And very often people say, what are you talking about?" Like, take a deep breath. Here, everybody stand up and Just do a simple qigong practice of taking a deep breath into your belly, sweep your arms into the heavens, and then bring your hands down through your front in the center and just like comb through and feel and scan yourself from head to toe. And then place your hands over your belly center, like your lower belly, just below your belly button, about an inch, inch and a half below your belly, and take a few deep breaths here. That's Qigong. Now check in with yourself. How is your energy on a scale of 10? Like, oh, okay, I'm actually fatigued. I was running on empty, drinking lots of coffee. Okay, just notice. Let's start there. Or, I feel like I have plenty of energy, but the quality is not great. Right? So we can start to differentiate. How's your physical body's energy? How's your emotional energy? Sometimes we have plenty of physical energy, but we feel emotionally exhausted. Or because we've been doing lots of mental overwork, we feel mentally exhausted, but we have plenty of physical energy. And what we really want is to go move our bodies outside. Or what about spiritual energy? Whatever that experiences for people. I hope that everyone listening feels that they have a soul and that there's a little bit more to life than just meets the eye in the physical realm. Right? Like what nurtures your physical energy? What nurtures your emotional energy? What nurtures your mental energy? And I hope this podcast conversation has been inspiring and nurturing and nourishing to your mind. Right? It feels like a food, like when you read a good book, when you're in a conversation that is like very inspiring and energizing. You can tell that this is an energizing conversation versus a depleting conversation, right? Also, spiritually, what are the practices and cultivations like meditation or music or volunteering in your community or just a good hug or showing your friends and family that you care and you're thinking about them, that that there's a connective tissue to all of life that you're aware of, right? We can tell what cultivates, energizes, and nurtures these energies and what depletes or fragments these energies. So we begin there. And the result is profound because it's a lifelong practice. And we can tell when something is energetically too expensive and is a no for us. Regardless on the physical realm, how many dollars that we could make potentially from a certain, say, business partnership. We can see that energetically it is so depleting that it will take away from the quality in all the other aspects of life that is just not worth it, right? Whereas some things, maybe physically, in terms of like the analytics on a spreadsheet, maybe doesn't pay hugely financially, but you see that you bring together a team and it's so inspiring and creates so much inspiration and energy and enthusiasm that it can ripple into many beautiful things down the line and you can feel it energetically, right? So then we start to tap into our own personal energy. Once you become more masterful at that, then you become sensitive to your relationship with others, your team members, your spouse, your neighbors, your community, and which relationships feel supportive and energizing and which feel depleting. And so you start to actually clean up your life and create a more and more congruent and beautiful life. And you start to tap into your inner guidance system of what works better for you and what doesn't work for you. And that ripples into lots of what seems like synchronicities of attracting into your team, into your community, more people that are an energy match to this very exquisitely beautiful high quality and quantity of energy.
Right. Yeah. And just as you say that, something that comes to mind is that it sounds like what you're saying, the better we become at mastering our own energy, the more in tune we become with our intuition, the better able we're better able we are to apply discernment to our life choices. It, it's like a foundational enabler of much more.
It supports everything else. So I see this as a non-optional prerequisite to creating a beautiful life. Having energy awareness, energy um, cultivation, energy hygiene. So the energy hygiene is interesting because how often do we get entangled in people's unnecessary drama? Because society has trained us to be caring, right? But sometimes probably your audience, a lot of people are very nice, kind people, and you're a little bit too caring sometimes, where you get yourself drained and exhausted and entangled in dramas that actually isn't really of service to you or them ultimately, right? Like the setting up healthy energetic boundaries, showing up with professionalism and respect and kindness and courtesy, and then actually having the energy practice like, okay, when you talk with someone on the phone at the end of the conversation, hang up that call, right? But
Right.
energetically, we're still spinning and thinking, like we're still if you could see the energy threads, and with practices, you can start to see, sense, and feel energy entanglements. So this is a little bit more advanced. You can literally see and perceive that there's still energetic cords and threads tied in with situations and other people. And you literally just do a little meditation practice and take a big breath and hang up the phone, hang up the thread, reclaim your energy, come back to your center, centered in your heart, centered in your head, heart, belly. Feel your hands and feet. Feel yourself centered, solid, rooted, and strong within your being. Reclaim that energy. You instantly feel better. And so there's so many like quick little practices like this that I learned through qigong that is very practical that I really feel everybody will benefit from. Simple, simple practices.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was trying some from your book bonuses.
Oh, great.
The 20 breaths. I tried that at lunchtime, and it reminded me. I used to do Kundalini yoga, and it was very similar to what we did in those Kundalini classes. That was years back.
Yes.
But it recalled just how energized I always used to feel after those Kundalini classes. But it was like I was getting a Kundalini, the effects of a Kundalini class in a couple of minutes. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and we are living in a different time now where, 20 plus years ago, these were considered woo-woo or strange. Now it's just like being a human being, being aware of your breath, taking a few deep breaths before you walk into a meeting so you present as the very best of yourself. You're centered, rooted, and grounded, and thinking more clearly, more present and aware, and being able to serve your team with the best of yourself. That's just called professionalism, honestly, right? Like there was a time when, if people would go to work, high on drugs or drunk on alcohol, as a culture, we've come to see that, oh, that's not so professional. In the future, I believe someone that comes to work with a super frenetic, frazzled energy, and I don't mean this with judgment in my heart, I just mean that we're evolving into being more sensitive and sensible as human beings. We'll come to see that, oh, that's not so professional because we're all sensitive and aware of energies. And so bringing clean, congruent, and coherent energy into the workplace will be considered a fundamental of professionalism.
Wow, that's a great vision for the future. Yeah.
Yeah, you would take a shower in the morning, brush your teeth, and maybe comb your hair a little bit to show up at the workplace. There's a minimum standard of hygiene. And in the very near future, it will be a minimum standard of energy hygiene that we simply expect in a civilization, in a civilized society that everybody is in a state of some form of a state of meditation, just simply because life works better. We are in a creative flow state. We're more efficient. We're more effective. We're kinder and things work better, like, there's a lubricant between our teams because there's an unseen energetic flow that is occurring, like, everyone is in a natural flow state consistently. So it just works better, it's very practical, and there's nothing, like, fluffy or new agey or woo-woo about it at all.
Well, no, and what I love about those practices you've got, I haven't done all of them, but I know there are other short practices associated with the book, is that they are practical to try out. You don't have to invest in going to a 90-minute yoga class, which you may or may not have a good experience of. but you can try this, and it's a very low bar to entry to try and experience the effect.
I would argue is even more potent because how many people, maybe your audience can relate to this, and we go to a 90-minute yoga class on the weekends, and then we come out and we start looking at social media and we're all like frazzled and stressed again. Versus if you take 3 deep breaths in between every single meeting to recenter and ground yourself.
Yeah.
And then with practice, you and maybe on the weekends you can, do a deeper breathing or meditation practice. But if you set your alarm on your calendar that in between every single meeting, you simply come back to your heart, come back to your body, feel your head, heart, belly, your hands, your feet, get centered, grounded with 3 simple breaths. Disconnect from the drama of that last meeting, come back fully to your center, get present. Boom, walk into the next meeting. If you do that in between every meeting, you will be enlightened by the end of this career, right? Like just these 3 little breaths all throughout the day puts you into essentially a perpetual flow state for your entire day. How much more powerful is that than just going to a big long yoga class once a week, right? And then being frazzled and discombobulated and fragmented all the rest of your life.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm so inspired by your optimism for the future because I have to say, as you were saying that, I was like, really, we're going to get people off, out of their comfort lifestyles, to that degree, and I'm talking to myself, right? Like I still drink coffee, but what I noticed today was having tried out your techniques, was I didn't need so many coffees, right? I didn't feel the craving so much. I mean, I still had one because I like to drink coffee, but I didn't feel the need in the same way, and I felt much more energized throughout the day. And it's interesting, and this I'm somebody who meditates a lot. I do yoga. I do all of these things, but what I haven't done, and this is what you're obviously advocating for, is habitualized it on a multiple times per day. That's not something I do, and so I can really I can absolutely see the power of that. I guess the question I'm left with is how do I develop that discipline of doing it throughout the day?
Yeah. Oh, discipline is a good word. Can we talk about this for a
Yeah,
moment?
let's do it because presumably you get this quite a lot. It's like, yeah, this is great. I just tried it, but how the hell am I going to kind of remember or develop the habit or the discipline to do it?
Yeah, because prior to the camera rolling, we were chatting about this idea of willpower and discipline and lifestyle practices and how people can kind of like willpower their way into some new practices for a short term and then they fall off the bandwagon.
Yeah,
And
can relate. Probably about 15 different modalities and techniques I've experienced that with.
yeah, and I've come to over the years different perspectives on this idea. I still believe that willpower and discipline can be helpful to initially get out of the inertia of an old rut. It's a short-term game. But for something to be sustainable, for us to go deeply within and get congruent with what is the most kind, loving, joyful way for us to guide our life. To really do that deeper soul searching is the secret sauce to something being sustainable. So to keep asking ourselves, what is the most kind and loving approach to this life of mine? And to allow the practices, maybe they want to evolve naturally. We don't need to be always stuck with the exact same rigid pattern. Like people are like, what's your morning routine? Oh, I've been doing the exact same morning routine for 10 years. It's like, well, maybe that served a purpose initially. Maybe you're ready to evolve and expand into some different practices, right? Like, what is the purpose of this life if not to explore the full spectrum of possibilities? But with regards to discipline, I used to feel not so good about this word discipline because it felt judgmental and harsh. And I've come to see that being kind to ourselves is the secret sauce to success when it comes to healing and well being. Listening deeply, slowing things down enough to get still to say, what is the kindest, most loving way that I can treat myself? What's the kindest, most loving approach to my health and self care? What's the kindest, most loving choice I can make in this difficult moment? That inquiry never seems to lead people astray, you know? And so discipline, I had this idea that when people use the word discipline, there was a harsh, non-loving, judgmental energy behind it. Then I looked up the root, the etymology of the word discipline. It comes from discipleship, being a student. Wow, that shifted everything for me.
Mm.
So there's no right or wrong at all, it turns out. Discipline is the commitment to studying deeply, and in this case, studying deeply what really works for me. Exploring the possibilities and studying deeply what works better. What's the kindest, most loving approach, and simply what works? Who can't get behind that? So if
Yeah.
we orient to discipline like, curiosity, I wonder what works for me. Let me try and explore and pay attention to what works and what doesn't work and keep refining and evolving on my journey. That is not some static thing. I'm always learning and growing in this life. And if I'm always learning and growing, that's my definition of success. So I cannot fail. So there's no need to be judgmental or harsh with myself. Right.
Yeah.
So
I
that's the
love it.
orientation behind all the choices that I like to make in life, including my health and wellness, including my relationships, my career, all of it.
Yeah, it just strikes me as the same theme, because when I consider, where I go sometimes with discipline is into my head and judging what, I think my discipline should be versus have I done it or not, right? I'm in my head, I'm not in my heart. And again, we're talking about dropping into the heart.
Yeah, I recently came back from a very profound plant medicine experience where a huge part of the learning was about the difference between judgmentalness and discernment.
Right.
Right? If we're a student of life, we're always cultivating wisdom and discernment, but we're not judgmental about it. The moment we get judgmental, we know that we've left our heart space and we're kind of like in this ego mind, program
Yeah.
that we're running.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh man, I'm shit. I didn't do my meditation this morning. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where I can go.
Yeah. Who is that voice?
Mm.
That harsh, judgmental voice? Your true self is kind and loving and wise. It would not speak like that. So that's kind
Yeah.
of a deeper meta practice. The energy awareness practice ultimately leads you to see, like, oh, okay, how does it feel when that voice is running? Like, it doesn't feel good. It feels harsh. It feels stifling. It feels, like it's not a flow state, right?
That's for sure.
But versus like, "Oh, okay, I noticed that that doesn't work so well. Let me try something." The curiosity, like, I think we can play with this, and there's a creative way to make it work better. Let's try, let's try." That there's no wrong way to live life, that there is just an ever-evolving journey towards greater and greater wisdom and refinement on this journey of life, then there's nothing harsh or judgmental about that. It's just like a fun, curious journey of learning and growth.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, before we came on, you talked about this idea of a sequence of practices, which got me interested. So, certainly got my analytical ego interested. Like, okay, come on, give me the steps. So, is that something you've discovered, that a particular sequence of practices makes a difference?
Yeah, so in today's world, biohacking is very popular. Many people have tried many of the things, and if I've piqued the audience's interest, the book that we've been talking about is Super Wellness. And so, Super Wellness on the surface, to the untrained eye, looks like a collection of what seems like popular biohacking practices, and it's not. I encourage you to look much deeper. It's a journey that is very methodically crafted of a sequence of exploration and self-care and self-inquiry that takes you on a journey of really knowing yourself deeply and having total confidence in how all of your different health and self-care and wellness practices fit into a cohesive and coherent picture of your health on all levels: body, mind, emotion, soul. So that's really the gift of super wellness, is putting all of these disparate things, instead of like throwing darts randomly, putting all of these disparate things into a framework that you really get what is health, what is wellness, and how do all the pieces fit in. So the journey that I take people through, I discovered it after a lot of experimentation. In the book, I shared that I started offering these wellness classes, and it became super wellness when we clicked in and realized the sequence, the journey that we take people through is very important. That when it's out of order, it doesn't give the same results. When people are throwing darts and trying different things willy nilly, it does not get anywhere near the same results. So the journey is as follows. There's a fun acronym to make it easy to remember. HEALTH. 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 The first H, can I go into the all
No,
6?
please do. Let's hear them. We
Okay.
can't leave the audience hanging now, Dr. Edith.
Yeah. So the first H before, because often people say, "Oh, what should I do? What should I do? Which modality? Should I do acupuncture? Should I change my diet? Should." First of all, I don't recommend should having a shitty life. Um, there's no should. There's a deeper inquiry that we begin with, which I call coming home to ourselves. The first H stands for coming home to ourselves. Just the orientation that you are the boss and CEO of your life. This is your life to turn into an exquisitely beautiful masterpiece. If you don't have that orientation, forget any of the rest of it. Start there. What is your definition of a beautiful life? And if you want to get healthy, what is your definition of health? What is your definition of wellness? Very often, when in the first super wellness class, I open it up and the MDs and the nurses and the nerdy PhD bioscientists, like all these people are like, wow, I hadn't considered this before. So in conventional medicine, they're very good at diagnosing diseases, all the ways in which your body can get injured or break down or get ill, right? But what is health and wellness? That's not actually part of the conversation very often. So I often ask people, well, is health and wellness the absence of disease or illness or symptoms? Has any of you gone through all of life with no symptoms, no disease, no illness? Like, it doesn't exist. So that's hopeless. So what is it? And everyone comes up with some beautiful, I mean, when I start asking people, and we do a few breaths and get into the meditative state, so it's not a cognitive inquiry, but it's a deeper essence that these answers come from a more deep, still meditative state. The answers is like Rumi and Hafiz walks into the room. The beautiful wisdom that comes out of, yeah, health is really an orientation, my capacity to be fully present in life, my capacity to learn and grow and evolve and expand into the very best of myself through often life's challenges and trials and tribulations. Health is my ability to respond to the stressors of life and adapt and grow and learn and get even stronger. So then we start talking about like, well, how does an athlete get fitter, right? We stress the body and then we bounce back and recover and we get even stronger than before. So no stress, no growth. No recovery, also no growth. That's the essence of the Chinese medicine yin yang theory, that the balance of the yin and yang is they're always intergenerating and nourishing each other. You need both. Right? So we live in a culture where we push, 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 go, 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 and people get very depleted and burn out. And we know what that feels like, right? That's not vitality. So, an exploration of coming home to ourselves, this orientation that I am the boss and CEO of this life, that is my life to turn into a beautiful masterpiece. And so, what is it that is my truth when it comes to my health and wellness? Let me have that compass calibrated properly first before I do anything else. And then we start looking at, well, what are some simple things that help me feel authentically true to myself? What are some low hanging fruit things? And so that inquiry we started with earlier, like what nourishes your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual energies, when I ask, people already know. It's like, oh, I just wasn't valuing it. These simple things like, every morning, go outside and just, like, take a few deep breaths and gaze at the sunrise. That's a richness, abundance, and prosperity that I was not permitting myself to experience, and it's completely free. And it completely colors my day in such a beautiful way that I feel great all day long. Why don't I do it? Why am I reaching for the coffee before I reach for a breath of fresh air and sunshine? And then I can have my coffee still. I'm not forbidding my coffee. It's just like, let's get the priorities straight, right? So there's a lot more to explore just about this coming home to ourselves and simplifying things back down to the fundamental essence of what we already know works. And don't overcomplicate it. Just notice that that's part of our societal programming because we become good consumers and buy lots of stuff. We're like feeling lack and scarcity and hungry for stuff all the time. Actually, you have a hyper abundance of free self care tools that are super simple and definitely not time consuming. 3 deep breaths. Can you do 3 deep breaths? Can you go outside and take a fresh air, sunshine, just, like, take a moment to take in life and then go to work? Could you do that? These things are free, and it completely recalibrates ourselves from the inside out in such a beautiful way. So H, coming home to ourselves. And then to keep going with this idea of what are those simple low-hanging fruit things? Many people say, "Oh, I gotta eat right and exercise and all these things." Like, yes, that can give you some results, but what gives you even better results? E stands for environment. What happens if every day you commit as a self-care practice to putting barefoot on bare earth, do a little grounding to get your electricity of your body grounded so that it's not short-circuiting all day? Start there. Take in some full spectrum sunlight because human beings also do photosynthesis. And when we're exposed to natural sunlight, it generates testosterone, serotonin, so many health producing hormones. It elevates our mood. It heals our skin, actually. It reduces rates of so many different chronic diseases that ail modern people simply by getting sunshine. And sunshine is not just vitamin D. There's a full spectrum of so many profound benefits from getting full spectrum sunlight. In fact, many of us have what's called blue light toxicity, being in front of artificial screens all day, which alters our physiology in ways that leads to higher levels of diabetes and blood pressure issues and lower testosterones and higher cortisol levels. So many hormonal imbalances just by our exposure to artificial lighting. And then at nighttime, do you do a good job winding down, dimming all the artificial light, dimming the screens, turning off the screens, and these days, unplugging your Wi-Fi hub, turning off all the artificial EMF devices that are just all these artificial frequencies that has our nervous system fragmented and hyperstimulated, so you can actually get a good night's rest sleeping in complete darkness. So sunshine during the day, complete darkness at night, spend some time in nature grounding, and, decrease your exposure to non-native EMFs. I would start there before I do the eat right and exercise, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I love about this book. You have to get several chapters in before we even talk about diet.
Yeah, so this is what I mean. Get your priorities, the order of operations correct. Is this starting to make sense? I
It
hope
does
so.
make sense, and I love it, and I love the orientation and the fact that it's not. Yeah, well, it doesn't start with practices. It starts with an inquiry, and then the first practices you do introduce take seconds, right? And as you say, it's more about managing your environment. You set it up. You buy blackout blinds once. That's it. There's no daily ritual required.
Yeah, or just
Yeah.
put on a blackout eye mask to go to
Mm.
sleep, like, keep it simple. Let's not just notice that that's part of our consumer programming from watching so much TV all our lives, that we want things to be expensive and complicated. So we've been indoctrinated, conditioned to devalue these free things, but in fact, they're the most potent and powerful things. So there's a reprogramming or deprogramming, on deconditioning ourselves from that hyper consumerist mindset that we think things have to be so darn complicated. They're not.
Yeah, the first question is sort of if you're faced with any challenge in life is okay, what do I need to buy? Like what do I need to get?
Yeah,
Solve it.
Yeah. So just notice that that's a
Mm.
program that we run, right? Like we've been conditioned into that because that makes us good consumers. Just notice it. So HEA, after the book came out, I realized that A really should be let's see, air, agua, umph. My partner Dave came up with the umph, which is like eating. So so we start talking about healthy diets, but put it into proper holistic context. If we had to, I'm not saying that people should go fasting for 30 days, 100 days, or anything like that, but if you had to, how long could you live without physical food if you had good water access? How long? It probably varies with different people. Again, full
Well,
disclosure.
I did it once for 4 days. I fasted for 4 days.
Okay,
I
so
could probably, I don't know. Well, I actually don't know. I mean, I guess I could, physically, I'm sure I could go for like, what did Jesus go for? 40 days?
30?
30 days, maybe?
Yeah, I have a number of friends that have done 30-day water fast as a spiritual practice.
Mm.
So in survival tactics, they say about 3 weeks, and in a meditative state, I know a number of people that have done 30-day water fasts. So, don't try this at home without some support and supervision, obviously, because when you do a water fast, it does cause a lot of detoxification of the body, so everybody take good care of yourself, but theoretically speaking, you can go quite a long time without physical food if you had water. How long could you go without water?
Well, okay, yeah, I'd guess like 3 days or something.
Yeah, again, is a range. When I did a survival tactics course, they said about 3 days. And so in a survival situation, they recommend that you don't eat food until you have a good water source because water is so much more important, and eating food without the presence of water could actually dehydrate you.
Yeah.
So is it possible that hydration is 10x as important as nutrition? So we know that nutrition is important. How much focus do we put on our hydration? Not just how much water we drink, the quality of water that we drink and the cellular hydration. How does water function in our body and our physiology? There's a whole new science to water with the fourth phase water and the structured water, so many things that is probably beyond the scope of this conversation that really deserves our education and awareness and attention beyond just like which diet you should follow, right? So, how long can you live without air?
That's great. I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah, it depends. If you're like a world champion free diver or the average person on the street, maybe 2 or 3 minutes or a few minutes. So, is it possible that breathing is 1,000 times or 2,000 times as potent and important for your health and wellness
Yeah.
compared to hydration, which is critical for life, compared to your nutrition? Let's put it into context. If you had to choose, start by kicking in a breathing practice, then work on your hydration practice, and then also work on your nutrition
Yeah.
in that order.
That's so interesting, isn't it, when you consider sort of yeah. If people, when they tend to think about health, and when it comes to their first thought might be, okay, I need to start eating more organic food, right?
Which is
which
good.
is more expensive. What you're saying is the first place to go is absolutely 100% free.
Yeah, and the organic thing is just not putting poison in our bodies, which is really important, all the pesticides and herbicides. Yeah, I support that wholeheartedly, but many people go really, focus so much energy on which specific I should the proportions of all the macros and micros and stuff, and it does work, but wait till you really focus on your breathing and your hydration first, and then start stacking it like that.
Yeah.
Right? And then when it comes to eating, I've started to discover that it's not just what we eat, but how we eat. Do we chew our food mindfully and joyfully? Do we take our time, or are we eating in a rush? Like, that is maybe as important or more important when it comes to people's lifestyle and health and wellness. So in the interest of time, I'll quickly move into the rest, but I hope the audience is getting this like aha moment right now that yes, I see how all of these pieces can cohere together in a sequential journey that makes a lot of sense when it's done in a certain order of operations versus just willy-nilly throwing darts at your health, right?
Right.
So then we start looking at the eating piece, and L stands for lightening up. When we start stacking these lifestyle practices, we already feel so good in our body, mind, emotion, soul. Like we already feel like a completely different person. If we just do HEA, it's already like infinitely different world that you're living in now. So L is where it naturally progresses into, I am so much more self-aware of my energy levels. I notice that sometimes I overeat and it doesn't feel good. Or I notice that I eat too many complicated things, so many ingredients that I want to simplify my foods down to just less ingredients each meal because it just feels better. You have that guidance system now because you're more aware of your body and your physiology and your energy levels. So it's very helpful often for us to do supportive either juice fast or water fast or brothing days. So in my super wellness class, we have many different levels. For some people, it's just to like get out of solids and just do soups and smoothies for a few days to lighten things up a little bit. For some people, they do juices during the day and broths at night. And for the really advanced practitioners, we might do a water fast. But there's like 5 different levels that I progress people through so that you start to feel this joy and delight of like, oh, okay, what does it feel like to lighten up a little bit, to lighten up a little bit more? And when we start to do juicing or water fast, we start to be really heightened in our sensibility and sensitivity to energies. Our senses aren't dulled down by so many heavy foods anymore. And when that happens, we become hyper aware of so many things that we were maybe potentially blind to before. So I recommend a lot of gentleness to set up your life so that you can also do a digital detox during those days, so that you're extremely mindful of what you're consuming in terms of media, the books, the movies, the conversations, to actually detox and clear out and clean out and lighten up on all the levels, not just the food level, and do it simultaneously. Body, mind, emotion, soul, lighten it up, clean, and detox everything at the same time. You'll
And
get
that's something, and I love that. I love that you said that because, like I said before, I've done a 4-day water and black coffee fast. I didn't let go of my coffee. I didn't want the headaches, but I was bouncing off the walls. I mean, I had so much lightness. I was like barely sleeping and full of energy, and but I did not digital detox. So I'm curious.
Yeah, so then discover who would Richard be if he does a cleanse and detox and a digital detox, all of it at the same time. The inspiration and the creativity and all the, like this the insights and epiphanies that come to us in the state when we feel so clear, right? So HEAL stands for spells heal, coming home to ourselves, optimizing your environment. The I call that get your A's in order. Air first, agua second, is third. Get that sequentially in the right order of operations, and then L for lightening up. After all of this, now your physiology is set up properly to do the really deeper work. And I trust that everyone that's listening to this, you've been in the personal growth circles for some time. And have you noticed that very often in personal growth, personal development workshops and retreats and so on, some people have breakthrough after breakthroughs, and other people kind of don't get results. I've come to see that the physiology that can handle the epiphanies and the insights and embody a new state of being that is like a really highly coachable person has a certain physiology to back up their ability to transform and change and expand into the next level of themselves. The HEAL is the prerequisite to get to the point where we do the T work, which is mastering our thoughts and aligning with the deeper truth, which is the true work that we all want to be doing. However, if you're exhausted, you're underslept, you're frazzled, your nervous system is all over the map, you don't have the capacity to have those epiphanies and insights and breakthroughs when you work with your coach. So I would potentially contend that you might be not getting your best bang for the buck if you don't do the physiological work to support the epiphanies and transformations that your coach, whoever you might be working with, a world-class amazing coach who's doing amazing coaching work, but we're kind of blocking our progress because the physiology is not primed so that we can have those insights and epiphanies and actually ground it into practical action. So this is so important, I feel, to stack it in such a way that when it comes to the T, noticing our limiting thoughts and beliefs, the mind mastery work, and then aligning with the deeper truth and that clarity of and conviction and inner confidence of navigating life in alignment with your deeper essence, your deeper truth. That is the true work. How do you support it? The sequence that we just talked about. So HEALT. And what's the byproduct of all of this is that everybody talks about heart coherence these days. All of this stacks us into
I
a
wish everybody spoke about heart coherence.
well, in my circle, how do we drop into heart coherence where we are emanating a coherent field, where we're in a perpetual flow state of joy and creativity and innovation and clarity, where we bring beautiful energy into everything that we do. And as a byproduct of that, everybody around us lock into a spontaneous flow of coherence. And as a team, we create group coherence, where everything just is lubricated and seems to work better. Everyone being in a flow state. It requires at least one of us to have done the inner work to be able to fully integrate and embody this coherent state, not just once in a while, but as our natural, consistent default state of being. To practice in such a way that this is your default state now. To me, that's true leadership. You walk into the room and you don't even have to say anything or do anything because your beingness brings coherence into the space and ignites the very best work in everybody in your team. That's leadership. So I encourage this audience that is so passionate about their personal growth, is passionate about being the very best of yourself, being the best possible leader in your community, in your work environment, that you give yourself the gift of this. And it's not just for you because you'll feel amazing in your body. You'll have so much clarity to build a beautiful life for yourself and your family. And also it naturally uplifts everyone around you. So it's a win-win-win-win-win across the board.
Beautiful. I mean, yeah, and so many light bulbs going off for me when and I love the way you've laid that out. And yeah, I'd never properly considered that before. That we cannot do great work on the mental level or on the heart level if we're impaired by our physiology, and we have to start there. I mean, yeah, that makes complete sense to me. I hadn't considered that
Now
before.
Richard, let me quickly review. The first H is coming home to ourselves. Then E is optimizing your environment, sunshine during the day, fresh air, grounding the feet, darkness at night, less EMF, artificial EMF, and artificial lighting. Optimize your environment. A stands for air first, agua second, is third on that list. L, lightening up. T, mastering your thoughts and aligning with your truth. And then H, living from your heart in a state of heart coherence. HEALTH. So that's the secret formula to super wellness.
Touche.
Enjoy.
Bravo to that. Wonderful. No, that really is fantastic. I love how you laid that out so clearly. Wonderful. And the way you've wrapped it in the acronym is going to be so easy for people to remember. Okay. Well, I know we're at time. That there are more things on my mind map, Dr. Edith, I'd have loved to delve into. But this has
Yeah,
been
I'd be delighted to
fantastic.
come back in the future for another episode whenever you
Yeah.
want to. I so enjoy chatting with you,
Yeah,
Richard.
we didn't even get to your 11 days in the darkness and, you meeting the soul of your child to be. And, there were so many other avenues, that we can save for another day.
Perfect.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. So the book for people who want to get it. And it's not just a book because when you buy the book, you get access to a video series, which I've started to delve into and can say, wonderfully presented, easy to follow exercises, and I know you've got other educational videos that come along with it. So well worth the investment. And I've read a lot of wellness books now, having done this podcast and just my own work. And this lives up to the title. This is truly holistic. And so, yeah, I encourage people to check that out. We'll put a link to the book and the website. Now, yeah, where else would you send people?
Well, I'm sure this audience can relate. Once you get into a flow state, you have so much creativity and so many things blossoming out of your heart. And so I have many different projects. They can all be found on my personal website, dredithubuntu.com. That's spelled Dr. Edith, Edith. Ubuntu is Ubuntu. So dredithubuntu.com. I hope that's okay to put on the
Please,
show notes.
no.
And from there, you can find Super Wellness. You can find my project about education and parenthood, the new paradigm of education that is something I'm involved with.
Yeah,
And
we didn't get into the remarkable stories I know you have about your children, but yeah, again,
yeah, and
there's another episode.
yeah,
Sure.
the book was written when my boy was younger, and then he actually said, "I have another sister. She's still in space. She needs to come to Earth now." He started in his 3.5-year-old way, and so now we have 2 children, and they're both amazing. And yeah, so many things that our children teach us too about what are we doing here? What is this life? What does it mean to be human? So many profound things. So I'm currently working on a new book about holistic prosperity. And that's a little bit different topic that I think when it comes when it comes out the audience, if you read both books, you'll see that it's coming from the same consciousness, the same essence of this desire to be here to get the most rich, fulfilling, beautiful experience of this life. And I feel that the super wellness journey primes us for everything else that we want to do with our lives. So I really feel that super wellness is a great gift to all of humanity that I wish for everyone to let go of the unnecessary struggling when it comes to their health and wellness, to allow it to be simple and joyful like this. And that doesn't mean you don't also see different practitioners for support, but this is going to amplify and supercharge the results that you get with everything else in life.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you once again. I know I need to leave you, but this has been awesome. Yeah, can't wait to get it out to the audience. And thank you for those watching live. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much, Bob.
you.
What a joy sharing this conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you.